3 Crossing Paths. Chapter 1. Cullen Bay. Kira sat on the cliff top overlooking the bay. It looked so small and inviting from where she was. The sea's various shades of grey sparkled from the bright light of the north. When she focused on the little stars on the sea, she was calm. She felt at peace in the moment. But every so often the events of the last week pushed through and wrenched her heart. She tried to forget, but her mind was uncooperative. Maybe she should just think it through, analyse it, and then let it go. As soon as she thought it, the pain in her heart appeared too great. A rock seemed to be pressing on her heart. The pain was so acute she had to remove it, as it was yesterday. Yesterday she could no longer bear it, and she started to run. She ran along the cliff tops. She wanted to run until her feet bled. She ran blindly. All she thought was to rid herself of the unbearable pain. She ran for over an hour until she could no longer, and until the pain was tangible. Her legs, feet, and body ached. She limped back to the B&B and collapsed on her bed, calmer, and slept. Today she was watching the sparkling light on the sea and the seagulls diving. It felt good being here. She definitely made the right decision to come. Whether she made the right decision last week, she was not too sure. If only such things as signs or a person would appear to let her know she had done the right thing. It was hard to make such a decision without any support, without any advice. Her life the week before flitted through her mind. She was laughing with her colleagues and joking about a story they were running. Then she could feel the caresses of Charles, and quickly those feelings were replaced with pain. Kira looked out to sea and said out loud, "Right, I need to think about what happened from the head and not the heart. Please let me do this," she implored the universe, the wind, the sea, the birds. A light wind blew across her face, and Kira suddenly felt she saw things differently. Things seemed just a little bit clearer. She tentatively started to think about her job. It wasn't a bad job, especially for Exeter, but last week everything seemed wrong. She needed to radically change her life, and that included walking out on her job. She was aware of her impulsive and rash side, and often hoped if she could detach herself from a situation and take time to think things through, she might make sounder decisions, or at least decisions which are not so extreme. However, at the time it seemed the only decision to make, as it always does at each of those critical moments. I need a sign, thought Kira. Am I really so impulsive, or do I live by another directive? Maybe I make the right decisions for the wrong reasons, she thought. Men. Men were always her problem. She mused. Her life didn't seem to be her own, but belonged to various men who crossed her path. They appeared to hold the key to her life. She quit the job because of a man. Men. The overwhelming feeling of pain was dissipating and replaced with these philosophical wanderings. Then Kira's mind stopped wandering and instead started to involve itself in her surroundings, in this beautiful environment. The grey-blue waters of the sea changed in tone and colour. She became aware of the depth of the sea lightening with the sun reflecting on its surface. Different layers of colour appeared as the sun flitted in and out of the clouds. She was engrossed with watching the sea light up by the sun's reflection. Kira, now fully present and absorbed with the sea, and no longer on her predicament, started to notice something moving in the water. Something grey appeared to be jumping in and out. She squinted her eyes to try to see better and tried to recognize what it was. Then clarity revealed a dolphin. Her heart started to pound. She was excited. This was extraordinary. She remembered there were dolphins in the Moray Firth and along the coast. She was compelled to go closer. Kira took the path leading down to the beach. She hoped as she came closer the dolphin wouldn't disappear. The beach was surprisingly empty, but she thought it must be school term time, and the children would be at school, and she assumed others would be working. The dolphin was getting closer and not moving further away. She stood on the edge of the sea watching the dolphin. She felt no fear, just fascination. The dolphin turned to face her and jumped up and looked at her. She heard a voice. "Join me," like someone inserted this phrase in her head. She wondered, what did this mean? Join me? Who? The dolphin? The dolphin was not standing in the water The dolphin was now standing in the water as if talking. was saying, "Join me." Fear and anxiety started to take hold of her. Was this in her imagination, or was this actually happening? Her curiosity made her stay, but her body was tense and petrified with fear. She was torn between remaining and approaching the dolphin and running away. This conflict paralyzed her, and she couldn't move. Kira was about to burst. She couldn't tolerate these conflicting feelings and had to use all her willpower to physically move herself. Just as she was about to take action, the dolphin vanished. The voice in her head stopped. Her body started to shake all over, a relief from the fear. She collapsed on the sand and stared. She became numb and cold and knew it was time to return to the B&B, and she had something new and wild to think about now. Kira walked slowly towards her B&B, which was not very far from the bay. While walking, she tried to keep the image of the dolphin in her mind. She had to know more. As she entered the house, she was met by her landlady, Mrs. McBride, who was holding a vase of purple and pink sweet peas. The smell was overwhelming. "Oh, hello, Kira," said Mrs. McBride, looking a bit startled. "Are you all right, dear? You look very pale. Come sit down. I'll get you a cup of tea." She led Kira into the small, flowery sitting room. The sitting room was covered in flowers, floral upholstery, curtains and tablecloth, and all the vases had different scented flowers. It was overpowering, but comforting. Mrs. McBride put the vase of sweet peas on the table and went to the kitchen. Kira sat on the floral sofa and stared into the empty fireplace. She would ask Mrs. McBride about the dolphin when she came back. Mrs. McBride, a small Scottish woman in her 50s, soon came back into the room carrying a floral tray with a pot of tea, 2 cups and a plateful of biscuits. She placed it on the table. "Now let's sit down and have a nice cup of tea. Sugar, dear?" she asked. "No, thank you," responded Kira, and she stood up to take the cup of tea from Mrs. McBride. "Help yourself to a biscuit, dear." "Thank you." They both settled down on their seats, sipping their teas. Mrs. McBride watched Kira, but didn't say anything. Years of experience told her the best way to find out anything is to be absolutely silent. Silence seemed to make people uncomfortable when they are with others. Most started to talk to get away from that uncomfortableness. All she had to do was wait and be patient. Something had obviously happened to this lass, and it worried Mrs. McBride. Something wasn't right. She had that uneasy feeling in her gut, which after many years she took as a warning sign. Kira, after drinking most of her tea, started to relax and feel calmer. "Mrs. McBride, do dolphins often come to the bay?" she finally asked. "Oh, aye, Colin Bay is famous for its dolphins. Did you see one?" she asked. "Yes, I saw one jumping in and out of the water, and it seemed to be talking to me. Oh, I know that sounds insane, but it kept looking at me and stood up in the water, carrying on as if it was talking to me," Kira explained, and looked almost pleadingly at Mrs. McBride to contradict her. Mrs. McBride looked at her and wondered why such a sighting of a dolphin frightened this woman so much. She wondered if something else happened. "There are some strange tales of dolphins. There is one which is particularly unusual. Would you like me to tell you about it?" asked Mrs. McBride. "Oh, yes, please." "There is a story which has been passed on from family to family. It supposedly happened about 100 years ago. There was a man who was engaged to a woman, and they were happily in love. He walked every morning along the beach. One day he saw a dolphin in the water, very near the shore's edge. The dolphin started to flip in and out of the water. It was making sounds as if it was talking. The man was mesmerized and just stood close to the sea's edge and watched. When he left, he couldn't stop thinking about the dolphin. From then, every day, as he walked along the bay, the dolphin appeared each time. One day he brought his fiancée to meet the dolphin. The dolphin jumped into the air and dived into the sea and vanished. The man was very disappointed, and so was his fiancée, who had heard so much about this dolphin. The next day the man returned to the bay alone, and the dolphin appeared again and jumped in and out of the water. It appeared to be laughing and playing. The man took his clothes off and went into the water. They seemed to play together. He loved it. Every day he came back to play in the water with the dolphin, and he started to see less and less of his fiancée. One day he didn't return from his walk and was never seen no more. The dolphin vanished as well. His body was never seen again. There was no message left or anything. His fiancée always believed that the dolphin took him for her husband. The clink of the teacups was the only thing which could be heard. Both Kira and Mrs. McBride were silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Kira felt exhausted, and in a partial state of shock. She thanked Mrs. McBride and went to her room to write and to try to make sense of it all, everything. The following morning, Kira left the B&B and walked towards the bay. She wanted to see if the dolphin appeared again. She went back to the beach where she left the dolphin the day before and looked out at the bay. There was no dolphin. She sat for about half an hour and decided it must have just been a twist of fate. Just as she was about to leave, the dolphin appeared, and again she heard the voice in her head. "Join me." She wasn't frightened this time. She wanted to go nearer to the dolphin. She had her swimming costume on underneath, just in case. She undressed and went into the water. The dolphin swam towards her. The North Sea wasn't known for its hospitableness. It was freezing, and Kira wondered how long she could last in this cold. It was spring on the verge of summer, but nonetheless the water seemed not to have warmed at all. She remembered distantly that you could survive about 40 minutes in icy cold waters. She wouldn't swim much longer. The dolphin was leaping by her side. It was sublime. Kira forgot about the cold and felt this connection to the dolphin, to all of life. The body of the dolphin moved closer to her and rubbed against her. She felt his heat warm her. The connection felt almost sexual. The dolphin's nose pushed against her and she stroked his head. She touched his fin and then, as if invited, held it tightly. Together they swam along the coast. She and the dolphin were one. His body was keeping her warm, but in the recesses of her mind she knew she had better get back to the shore. The dolphin seemed now to change direction and started to take Kira out further away from the shore. Panic started to set in, and Kira wanted to let go, but was frightened. Was the dolphin taking her to her end? Was this it, she wondered? A lamb led to slaughter, because she was the lamb, as she followed without any hesitation. The cold was numbing her body and her mind. She thought she was becoming delirious and losing her sense of self. She couldn't feel, and slowly she let go of the dolphin's fin and fell deep into the water. She vaguely felt the dolphin's nose push her up to the surface. Endorphins started kicking in, and Kira experienced a peace, a feeling of inevitability. She fleetingly thought this was leading her to her death, and then she was overwhelmed with an urge to die. To die in this euphoric state was good. After all, she left no one behind, no one who'd really miss or care about her. She had been in a series of disastrous relationships. Her parents didn't care. She had no pets, only some plants, and those presumably would be looked after by someone. This was right. She could return to nature from where she came. The dolphin continued to nudge and push Kira out to sea. It worked with frenzied strength and speed, as if it knew time was limited. Another dolphin came to help keep Kira afloat and breathing, and still took her out to sea, further and further away from the firth. The dolphins took turns pushing Kira on her chest with their noses until she in turn would start gasping for air and breathe more regularly. The dolphin swam close to the surface so air could reach her. Kira was unconscious, but alive. They were now on the northern side of the Moray Firth, going towards the Orkney Islands.